Right, if there's ever a time to have a cup of tea and cookie, I think it's this video, everyone, don't you? I've actually popped this one in my Ember mug today and it will stay nice and hot because Lord knows I'm going to be chatting today. Hello my lovely friends and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We have a little bit of a different video today compared to my usual vlogs because I blinked and this week it has been 5 years since my mum passed away. If you've been around for the entire journey, which I know so many of you guys have, you will know that I kind of tend to do a bit of an update with my grief every now and then. I did one when I first came back online after she passed away, which was probably around a month after she died. I also did a video to mark the first anniversary of her death. In those videos I talk through how I'm feeling. I will leave both of those linked below. But it now feels like an appropriate time to do another one because it is the 5-year mark, and I can't quite believe it, to be honest with you. The reason I do these videos is because out of all of the things I've experienced in my life so far, grief and loss are up there with one of the toughest things I have ever experienced. Grief, especially in the early stages, can feel incredibly isolating. I remember feeling very lonely, just very lost. And when I was experiencing my mum's illness, the lead up to her death, the initial stages after her death, all I remember is being desperate to have somebody to connect to that felt the same way. And I couldn't find anyone in my real life and kind of in the online community. I couldn't find one YouTube video that shared the way I felt too. It was a time in life where I was really, really desperate to just have someone to connect to and to feel like I had a friend who knew how it felt. So it's really important to me to do these grief updates every now and then because I don't think I'm the only person that felt that way, and if I can use this platform for anything, it would be to help them through that time in life because, you know, not to sound morbid, but we will all experience loss at one point in life, and I just think there's not enough conversation happening around that. So if you need someone, let me be your someone. I can hold your hand through this from someone who's been there. If you don't know my story, if this is the first time we're meeting, I'm sending you a really big hug. The videos that I mentioned before are probably a really good opportunity to go and hear my journey in depth and everything that happened. But in a nutshell, my mum passed away when I was 24 years old. She was 54 years old. She had been battling with a brain tumour for 5.5 years. It was awful. It was a horrible time in my life. And I remember thinking of the stage I'm currently at right now. I remember when she first died and thinking, what is my life going to look like in 5 years' time? Because moving on with my life and happiness and experiencing joy and having children and all of these like incredible things that you go on to do in life felt impossible without my mum here to experience it all with. Will I feel healed? Will I feel still as heartbroken as I felt a day after she died? What would my wise words on grief and loss be? And now I've clicked my fingers and it's been 5 years. I've lived it. I've lived 5 years without my mum. I'm at a point on some days I didn't ever really think I would get to. And I've done it. In those 5 years, I have gone on to have 3 beautiful children that are quite simply the love of my life. If you guys are around for my usual vlogs, you will know motherhood is just my everything. But we'll get onto that shortly. I got engaged, I got married to the love of my life, the most wonderful man I've ever met. I have moved to the other side of the world. I live in America, which is one of my biggest bucket list experiences ever in my whole life. I've had all of these wonderful, crazy, big life moments in the first 5 years since my mum died, and she hasn't been here for any one of them. I remember that being my biggest fear when she first died. I really remember being absolutely petrified to continue my life without her. I was so scared that continuing my life and feeling happiness and going on to kind of just like build something that she would never be a part of would replace the life that I used to have when she was in it. I was scared to start again. I was really scared to become someone new, because I know that with every year that passed, I'd just be getting further and further away from the person I was that had her in my life. What I really wish I could go back and tell myself, and what I really want to tell anybody who is seeing this video and maybe they've just experienced loss for the first time: your new life never can replace the life you had with them. She will never be replaced. That time will never be replaced. It's never coming back, but it will never be replaced either, no matter how much of a life you go on and build for yourself after your loss. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be parked right there. Nothing's going to happen to it. Nothing bad is going to happen from choosing yourself after they've gone. I'm going to say that again for anyone that needs to hear it. Nothing bad is going to happen from choosing yourself. In fact, it is what they would want. If they loved you, there is absolutely no way they would want you to just give up and stop your life just because they aren't here anymore. Just because you go on, it doesn't mean that they get left behind. They are always still there, always. And I know it's a really cliche thing to say, and I remember when people used to say that to me. And from time to time, still now, when people are kind of trying to comfort me and maybe they haven't experienced it, they tend to say like, oh, they're still with you in their heart. And it used to really bug me, because I would just think, they're not though. Like, it's not the same as popping round my mum's house for a cup of tea and a flapjack. And it's not. It's not. But what I can vouch for is that they are still here, if they still exist in your mind. A little bit like the movie Encanto, if any of you guys have seen that. You know how they've kind of got the family altar and they're petrified of the next generation forgetting maybe their great ancestor that died years and years and years ago, because if they haven't got the memory of that person in the real world, then they're gone. It's in my experience, it's actually really like that. The more that I think about her, the more that I kind of connect her in the dots of my day-to-day life, the closer I feel to her. I think 5 years on, that is probably my biggest takeaway. You know, 5 years in the grand scheme of things is really not a long period of time at all. But 5 years has been long enough to teach me that grief is actually ever changing. So I feel like the word grief sounds really horrible. I feel like it sounds like death. I feel like it sounds like emptiness, like grief. You know, it's just such a scary word. But if you are watching this and you are in the early stages of your grief, hear me out, because it might be really hard to believe, but actually 5-year-old grief is starting to feel ever so slightly a little bit like love. Because now I actually find my mum in those moments of love rather than in the moments of sadness. And I will talk about the feelings of sadness and anger and everything that is happening with my grief at 5 years in, because there's a big chunk of that too, definitely. But I feel more connected to my mum when I am looking into my own children's eyes with the same adoration I know she would have had for me. I feel her more when I am walking, which is something she used to love to do, and I'm looking at the trees or the birds and hearing them tweet, or I'm by the sea, or I see a shell on the beach, because she always used to love hunting for shells and fossils. Like, doing these things that she loved to do, that's when I feel most like she's walking right beside me, compared to, you know, when I am just having a really down day and I feel like I want to connect to her, but that's when I feel like I can connect to her the least, because I feel really low in my energy. And don't get me wrong, those days definitely still happen. In my therapy sessions, which I have been having for 3 years now, which is something I'm really, really proud of myself for. It took me years. I have spoken about this before, so some of you guys might know. It took me a really, really long time to find a therapist that I trusted and felt like I could connect with. And I'm talking since I was in year 8. So how old are you in year 8? Like 13-ish, maybe? But that was the time I had my first ever therapy session, and it took me until I was 25, 26 to find the right one. Someone who has now been in therapy for 3 years. I wholeheartedly believe everybody, like literally every single person that has the chance to have a beating heart, a brain that is alive, lungs that can breathe air, like, you at some point need to go to therapy. I always use the analogy, we wash our bodies, or most people wash our bodies in the shower every single day. When was the last time you washed your brain? You're still holding so many... I can feel myself going down like a real path with this now, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but you're holding so many like negative self-beliefs and trauma and things that you need to work through from something that might have happened when you were 4 or 5 years old, and now you're 35 years old. Like, you need to work through things in a way that I believe therapy just is priceless with, when it comes to tools of working through things with. So I really recommend therapy. But don't get disheartened if you don't find the right therapist straight away, because like I said, it took me a really long time. Now, I would never change it for the world that I'm in therapy, but yeah, would 10 out of 10 recommend therapy. And in those therapy sessions, 5 years on from when my mum died, there are a lot of emotions that come up. There are still all of the emotions of sadness, and I literally had a moment, I think maybe about 5 or 6 sessions ago, so 5 or 6 weeks ago, where it was a really weird sensation. I was kind of talking about what life would be like now if my mum was still here. I'd kind of taken myself down this path of thought, and I was really, really so deep in it in my mind. And then like a noise happened in my garden or something, and it brought me back to this moment that I actually am living now. And it was really scary actually, because I was looking around, and where I'd been so deep in this train of thought of my life with my mum, to be brought back to this life where I don't have her, it was like a sudden thud back down to reality. And it could have been like my mum had died that morning. I was so sad. So I definitely still do have those moments of revelation and a shock of grief out of nowhere, but they are much less and less compared to what it was like when she first died. I do also still have extreme moments of anger. I'm typically not a very angry person, but grief for me to some degree has absolutely held anger. In so many different ways as well. I'm obviously angry that I have to live a life without her. I am angry about that. But I do also have moments of feeling angry towards her. And this is a kind of new territory for me with my grief, because I think in the early stages of grief, you're so kind of like bogged down by this loss of them. You would do anything to have them back, obviously, as I still would, but there's no room for the normal feelings that you would have had with this person. So, just normal kind of like disagreements her and I had when I was growing up. Choices that she made that I don't agree with now that I am a mother myself. just dysfunction between her and I, as is in every relationship in some sort. And there was a lot of dysfunction between my mum and I, despite how much she was absolutely one of the loves of my life. And I feel like sometimes people who maybe haven't experienced loss feel like it's quite a contradicting thing to say, that, you know, she was like my incredible mum that I loved so much, but also there were lots of things that I was really angry with her about. I just want anyone else who feels the same way to know that that's okay. If those feelings of anger are coming through, believe it or not, you are actually healing, because your psyche is making space for those natural feelings of how you actually felt towards them to come through. It means that you've processed some of the loss of them. That grief just doesn't consume you like it may have at one point, because there's still space for your feelings separate to the grief to come in. I think a key difference now, 5 years on, is that I don't feel guilt for feeling those feelings anymore. If they did ever used to pop up, and they did, I actually remember I have this journal that I don't really write in it anymore, but I used to write in it quite a lot when she first died. And I remember there specifically being one entry into this journal where I was just really angry at her, and I was like writing down all of these things that, you know, she never gave me, we never had a conversation about lots of things that happened in our life together. And I was just left feeling really angry on this specific day, maybe 2 weeks after she'd died. I was so angry. And I wrote it all down, and then I felt so horrible for having written any of that down. Like, I felt so mean and really unworthy and just sad and guilty for feeling so angry. The difference is now that I don't feel guilty, and I do think that that's a sign that I've processed her death. I do think that's a sign that I've accepted that I, you know, am continuing life without her and that she's not coming back, which was a really scary thing to feel, to say, or to think when she first passed away. I think it's acceptance that the only way I can connect with her now is through a dream or a thought, rather than a real life hug or a real life conversation with her. You know, the only conversations I have with her are in my mind. Of course it's sad, of course I get sad about that, but it's not actually really, really sad to me anymore. I've kind of come to peace with that. I kind of enjoy the conversations I have with her in my head, because I feel like it means that she's still here. And taking it right back to the start, that's what I feel like grief is for me 5 years on. Not just the sadness, not just the anger, not just the hurt or the loss. It's actually the love and the new way of processing how she's here in this new life of mine without her that I was so scared to build once upon a time. The life that I thought would replace her, but actually it's kept her with me in a way that I never really could have understood until I kind of got to this point in my journey. Here I am, 5 years in, living, loving, definitely, missing her, but I'm not lost like I once was. And of course I would do anything to have her back, but do you know what? Sometimes life is just a bit shit and you just lose someone before you want to. And I think something I have kind of wrapped my head around now is that it is the luxury that we get to spend time with people. That's the luxury in life, because it's the inevitable that we're all gonna die at some point, you know? And I hate that that sounds so morbid, but it's true. It's the luxury in life that we get to spend time with people. This is actually the first year where, on her anniversary of her death, I am doing something that isn't completely around her. I'm actually going to a wedding, which I feel like I haven't let myself think about too much. I feel like if there was anything that was gonna really shake me up out of getting out of this funk, at this time of year have to be something kind of extreme, like going to a wedding. I kind of took it as a sign that this wedding of my friend's is happening on the day that she died. Like, it's because it was also a family friend of hers too, so she knew these people. I have no doubt that she's going to be there with me at the wedding, you know, but yeah, that kind of feels a little bit strange to me at the moment, because in anniversaries past I've just wallowed and cried and felt sad, and this is going to be the first year where I have to, you know, get up, put some makeup on, celebrate something else, celebrate life. That day that she died is often obviously a day that I think about death and her not being here anymore, but this is the first year where I'm celebrating life. So I will obviously let you know how that goes. But yeah, it's just another sign of life moving on. And now that I'm actually here living it, I'm actually okay, more okay than I thought I would be with life moving on compared to when she first died. And I just like didn't even know how I would do that. It broke my heart. It was like I was about to jump on this roller coaster and she was just going to be like left at the entrance, and I would never see her after I got on this roller coaster, and the roller coaster just goes and goes and goes and goes. And now I'm on the roller coaster and it doesn't feel as bad as I thought it would. In fact, there's so much life to live. Like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I chose myself. I'm so happy that I have my kids. Like, I'm so blessed and I'm so lucky. I wish she was here to see it, but she's not. So, sending you guys a really big hug today. If you are watching this video and you're just here just to chat and just for me, I really appreciate you so much, so thank you so much. If you're lucky enough to have your mum or your dad or someone you really, 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 really love in life, just go and give them a hug. Just go and do it. Just don't even ask a question. My dad typically is not a very emotional guy, but the last couple of weeks I've just texted him so many times like, I love you, I really appreciate you. I think it's sad that there's a bit of a taboo around like, oh, I love you, especially with the older generation. Like, just everyone needs a bit of love, so just go and tell them that you love them, because one day I don't know if you'll be able to anymore, you know? If you're watching this and you have lost someone, and whatever stage of grief you're at, I just want you to know that I'm with you, I see you, I feel your feelings, I really, really, really do. I know how you are doing, and I'm just wrapping my arms around you and giving you a really big hug. And whatever stage of grief you're at, it's okay. If you're in the early stages of grief, just know that one day, maybe not soon, but eventually the pain will shift. You will be doing things that you didn't ever think you might be able to do again, and you'll be okay. Grief doesn't have to just feel like loss all the time, forever. Grief, in my experience from the last 5 years, can actually feel like love. So that's just my 2 pence, but I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, my loves.